Thank you so much for joining us this day. And we do have some questions for you.
All righty.
The first question that we have is, you've mentioned that for your latest book, Something Whiskered, the scene of a dead body falling in front of our protagonist came to you immediately. When crafting your stories, is the murder usually one of the first things that comes to mind?
In a way, yeah. I mean, I usually know whom I'm going to murder and how I'm going to do it. So I work toward that point. I don't usually have the murder in the first chapter, though. So this is the only book I think I've ever written where the murder occurs so quickly. But the person who's murdered in this book is a nice person because normally I murder nasty people. So I like to give the readers time to get to know them and why they're unpleasant and why people would want to kill them. So that's one big difference here.
The next question is, which of the scenes in Something Whiskered would you say was the most challenging to write? And how did you overcome that challenge?
Well, I think actually the ending and the revelation of, what really happened was probably the hardest because it wasn't what I had anticipated the ending to be. But as I was writing, that's just the way it happened. I realized I was trying to force it to do something else. And the way I ended it seemed the most natural way to do it. So I had to just let go and follow my instincts.
What is the most valuable piece of advice you've been given about writing?
Well, the late Bill Kreider passed along advice he had been given years before. Bill Kreider was a very prolific Texas mystery writer, really nice guy. And he said that he could drill it down to 4 words: keep butt in chair. In other words, sit there and work.
Oh.
Don't go change the litter in the cat box. Don't go put the clothes out on the line. Don't go to the grocery store. Stay there and work it out. And I wish I had, would listen more carefully to that because I'm bad about procrastinating.
I think we're all guilty of procrastinating to some degree.
Oh yeah.
What kind of research did you have to do for your Something Whiskered? And did you uncover anything particularly surprising or fascinating?
Well, I've been to Ireland twice, and I've been to County Clare, which is where the book is set. I have a really good friend who lives there, and I visited her twice and done sightseeing and stuff. Um, I had to do some research. I had to check where the police stations are in County Clare, which is the main one, because that's where the detectives would come. And of course, in Ireland, the police are called Garda. One police officer is a Garda. Multiple policemen are Gardaí. And so I use that term because for the most part, that's what they use. I also did research into Irish slang because the Irish, have a very colorful way of speaking, and I wanted to, make it sound as authentic as possible without making it overwhelming. I mean, one of my favorite Irish expressions is Egypt, which is the Irish equivalent of idiot. And another one is Gombeen, Gombeeen. They have multiple words for stupid people. you know. And then there are, the words for people who drink too much. If they drink too much, they call them legless, which, I mean, if you think about it, that means they can't stand up, and stuff. Because drinking is a big part of the Irish culture. I mean, the pub is the hub of all social life in Ireland. And I didn't really spend I'm not a pub person. I've eaten in them, but I don't go there to drink. I'm not a beer drinker, but they are the hubs of social life. But I didn't include any pubs in this because my characters weren't going to go to the pubs. But and I did a little research into a couple of more esoteric things, which turned out to be part of the plot later. But I also managed to work in my favorite place to go in Ireland, which is the Cliffs of Moher, which are just absolutely stunning. They're on the west coast. Clare is on the west side of Ireland, and they're on the west coast, and they're absolutely stunning. The puffins come there every year. We were a little early for the puffins because they don't usually get there till like late April, early May, and we were there previously in October, and then last time we were in April, and I think I've sort of lost the thread of the question, but and I've been to the Cliffs of Moher twice, so I didn't have to research that. Although I did, research some things around the Cliffs of Moher, part of the plot, but I don't want to give anything away. But so those are the kinds of things, and because I always worry when you set something in a foreign place, you're worried you don't want to misportray it, but I think I did a decent job of it. So far, I mean, nobody's, called down St. Patrick on me for
Uh,
making mistakes.
well, the next question is there any significant way the version of Something Whiskered that was published differs from your initial vision?
Not in any significant way. There's always things that need to be cleaned up because, sometimes I lose a little track of the timeline and sometimes I will repeat something when I don't need to and things like that. So mostly in my editor actually edits the books, unlike in some publishing companies. She actually reads the books and edits them, and she's really good at, telling me, okay, this doesn't work, and you need to fix that. And then there's also a line editor who goes through the book, the manuscript, literally line by line, and finds out all kinds of inconsistencies. And they keep track of names. For example, in this book, there is a ghost cat, and I had decided his name was going to be, I can't remember now, I got them backwards, was going to be Fergal. But then I changed it to Fingal halfway through, or the other way around. So I had to, you know, go through and fix it to be all the same name. And because I use a bunch of Irish names, and a couple of them are not easy on the American tongue. And the Irish have a really odd way of spelling things. Like the combination of M and H is pronounced as a V. And the same thing with like B and H. And one of the characters is named Quiva, which is spelled Caoimhe. Doesn't look anything like Quiva, but that's how it's pronounced. So I tried to make those understandable in the book. So
The next question is, do you share your work in progress with anyone?
I used to when I was in Houston, I was part of a critique group who were extremely helpful with the first few books that I wrote in this series. And I tried to keep up with it after I moved back to Mississippi, through Skype and everything, but it just wasn't working very well. And I also have a couple of friends, not in recent years, but for quite a while, I would send them uh, the book. At first, I would send them chapter by chapter, and then later on, I'd wait and just send them the whole manuscript, and they would give me some good feedback. One of them is a Maine Coon owner. And at the time, she had three, and one of them was a male. And she was really good about telling me what a Maine Coon would do and what a Maine Coon wouldn't do. And that was very helpful, because I mean, Diesel doesn't really take an active role in solving the murders, although occasionally he will do things that have some effect on the plot. And I always wanted to make sure that was consistent with what a Maine Coon would do, because they're very bright cats. They're very smart. And they're very loyal and very loving. And I wanted to make sure that that came through. I do not have a Maine Coon myself, but I've been around one. So,
Question is, in Something Whiskered, Charlie, Helen Louise, and Diesel gets a change in scenery in the form of an Irish castle. We know you love to travel. Can we expect Charlie to become more worldly? And if so, do you have a place in mind that you would love Charlie to visit?
well, I'd love to take Charlie all over the place, honestly, because when I go those places to do research, I can write it off on my taxes. But, I couldn't always take Diesel with him. Because when I was originally working on something whiskered, I was planning for Diesel to stay at home because the English and the Irish for a long time had a rule that any animals brought into, England and Ireland had to be in quarantine for 6 months, And if you're only going there for a couple of weeks, I mean, you can't do that. And I think the English still do the quarantine thing. But my friend who lives in Ireland, I was emailing her about something, and she said, "Oh, they have changed that now." And she said, "So you could actually bring it." And she gave me the website to look at, and I read the rules carefully, and it was fairly simple. They just have to have a rabies vaccination within the last 30 days, and they have to be microchipped. And there's a couple of other small things, but essentially you can bring a pet with you to Ireland if you follow those rules. So I thought, okay, well, Diesel can go after all, which, made it much easier for me to write than, because I was going to have scenes with Diesel back home interspersed through the book, but this made it better since he could actually be there. But I'd love to go various places. I'm quite a gad about when I, have the time and the money. I'd love to go back to Istanbul in Greece, and the Turks are love cats and dogs. I mean, Istanbul has things, to feed dogs all over the city, you know. And that same thing with cats. I mean, wherever we went in ruins in Turkey, there were always cats, and they were very friendly, you know. Because I was petting one at Ephesus, and somebody said, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. That's probably a wild cat." I said, "Look at this cat. He was laying there, oh, and just happy with me rubbing on him, So they tend to take care of stray animals unlike we do here. So I would love to do that. I'd love to take him on a cruise, but I don't think they allow pets on cruises. So
That would be fun.
yeah.
Our next question is there a character across all your books you feel the worst about killing off?
Well, I really hated killing the murder victim in Something Whisker because he was genuinely a nice person. Uh, But, other books, no, I haven't, I don't feel guilty at all. In fact, I killed one person twice because she was based on a person I worked with whom I loathed, and I also killed a former boss who I also loved. He was actually a sociopath. He was a complete narcissist and classic sociopath. And I squeezed him to death between compact shelving in the library. Which technically you can't really do because there are safety measures, but I didn't care. It's what he deserved, I thought.
The next question is can you share a moment from your personal life that inspired a situation or character in one of your books?
Oh, well, that's an interesting one. Hmm. I've been writing these books for, 16 years now, so some of my, memory has faded over the time. So I have to stop sometimes and think, so, okay, what did I do in this book? Or what did I do in that book? Huh. Well, I mean, Charlie and I have a lot in common, and he lost his parents, sort of. My parents didn't die in accidents, but my father died relatively young at 64 and my mother at 69. So, and he was an only child like I am. So, that I guess that's one thing that is, from my own background, and Charlie's also a Mississippian like I am. And with most people in the South, family runs strong, and we know a lot about our family histories usually. And, my family, the James family, and also my mother's family, the Williamses, all immigrated. They all came in the 17th century and it started out in North and South Carolina and then gradually moved west. And I probably have, family in East Tennessee still, from multiple generations ago, because that's where my mother's family lived. They were in Carroll County, Tennessee, although my father's family were in the area where I grew up. They took advantage of the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek to get farmland in Mississippi when the Cherokee were dispossessed unfairly of their land. And so, I mean, in a sense, I mean, Charlie's background is very much like my own, although, his father grew up on a farm, but his dad was not a farmer, and Charlie was not a farmer. And in what the cat dragged in, uh, the house that's in that book, which belonged to Charlie's grandfather, is actually based on my great grandfather James's house, which I vaguely remember as a child because it was in walking distance of my house on farm. So. So I think probably that's the most important thing that comes from my own experiences is, Charlie's and some of his background and the way he looks at things and so forth.
What projects are you currently working on, and can you offer any hints or teases for your upcoming work?
Well, I am working on the next book in the series, book number 18. I recently got a contract for two more books.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. This one, I've done one Christmas mystery in the past, Six Cats a Slaying. And I wanted to do another one. That was that was like 6 or 7 books ago. And my working title for it is "Oh Little Town of Homicide," which I like. I don't know if the marketing people will like it, so it may change. And this one is going to resolve around a church Christmas pageant, which turns deadly. Now, it's been a long time since I was, in a church like that, but I remember when it called for cooperation among a whole bunch of people in the church, that there was always tension and strife because, person A wanted to do it this way, and person B said, no, you got to do it this way, and person C had yet another idea. So situations like that, tempers can mount even among good Christian people, and I thought it would be kind of a fun setting to just sort of let people loose and see what happens. And it
Uh,
should be out hopefully sometime around this time next year. We'll see.
okay, if we ask anyone in the audience if they have any questions for you.
Of course.
Anybody have any questions? Well, I do. May I ask a question?
Well, of course.
What inspired you for Diesel, both in the character of the cat and the name?
Well, a little background. My previous series for Berkeley was the Trailer Park books, and there were 5 of those. And unfortunately, they did not sell well enough for them to keep up publishing them. But my editors really liked my books and liked working with me. And then they knew I could finish a book. And they suggested, well, have you ever thought about writing a book about a librarian and a cat? Well, and because they happen to know that I was a librarian and I had cats and everything, I said, well, sure, I'll give that a try. And I did. And when I started writing, just the fact that the cat was going to be a Maine Coon named Diesel just came into my head. Now, the first Maine Coon I ever met he belonged to the late Barbara Mertz, whom you might recognize better as Elizabeth Peters or Barbara Michaels, the great mystery writer. A friend and I were visiting her at her home in Maryland, and we're sitting. And Barbara always had dogs and cats around. She loved animals, and we're sitting there chatting with Barbara, and in comes this huge thing that looked like a bobcat. We thought it was maybe a bobcat, and we're looking at him, and she said, "Oh, that's just the Diesel." He was a Maine Coon, and he was huge. Barbara said he weighed 40 pounds. And that's not from hair. That was just, he was a really big cat. He was probably at least 4 or 4.5 feet long from nose to tail. Uh, and he was just the sweetest thing. He took a shine to my friend Beth, and he climbed up into her lap and stayed there. She was immobile for much of the time we were there because he didn't want to get out of her lap. But he was just, he made such an impression on me that he stopped that. One of my cats is in here scratching something. He made such an impression on me. I thought, well, Maine Coon named Diesel. whatever. Later on, Barbara found out about my diesel, and she threatened to sue me. This was all a joke, of course, and but that's where he came from. That was my inspiration, And every time I write, I think of Barbara. She passed away 12 years ago, and of course Diesel is long gone too. But that he was my inspiration for my cat. And of course
Wonderful.
Ramses, you know, Charlie adopts another cat later on, and his name is Ramses. Of course, he's named for one of my favorite characters in Barbara's Egyptian books. So,
Can you tell us a little more about the relationship between Charlie and Ramsey?
well, Ramses is a really rambunctious cat. Of course, he's a tuxedo, and tuxedos are. I have two, so I don't have to look very far for inspiration. And they're both mischievous, and so they. I'm trying to remember if I don't think I may have just gotten a Bert and Ernie when I was writing that book. I can't remember. They're 8 years old now, and tuxedos can be very comical. They can be clowns. They can be very active, whatever. And I decided, uh, that my Ramses, my fictional tuxedo cat, was going to be that way too. He's very impetuous, and they can be very smart. My two, they're litter brothers, and one of them, Ernie, is very smart, and his brother Bert is not so smart. So even though they're from the same litter, you know, so I guess I really can't remember. I have to look and see what year Six Cats Lane was published. It all begins to fade after a while. That was book 10. So maybe I had just adopted them when I was writing that book. So anyway, but Ramses is fun, and he's also he Azalea, the housekeeper, takes a shine to Ramses. It took her a long time to warm up to Diesel, but she has a softer heart than she'd want to admit. But she takes Ramses sometimes home with her for the weekend because he's easier to manage, and he loves climbing into her big purse. So but he's fun to write about.
Well, as in wrapping up, is there anything you would like to share?
Well, I mean, the main thing I want to say is how much I appreciate my readers because I couldn't do what I do if it weren't for the readers. And the way that readers have supported these books has really been, overwhelming and very heartwarming to me. And because I had never had a series go beyond 5 books, and now I'm writing book number 18. So people have really taken this series to their hearts, and I'm just amazed. And now the books are selling in France and England, France and Italy and Spain. And actually the French publisher just published Six Cats a Slaying, but the French title translates as Charlie Harris's Christmas. So because they've changed all the titles except one. They didn't change Arsenic and Old Books because that one was easily translated into French, but every other title they've changed. But the French seem to enjoy, the books, and I think the Spanish publishers on book 5 or 6 and the Italian publisher even licensed the audio rights. So I'm going to have my first foreign language audio at some point, yeah. And the audio books do well. So I've been really gratified by the reception because this was my lifelong dream to be a writer, and now since I've been retired from the library, I'm basically a full-time writer, although I don't put full-time into it. So,
Well, it has been a pleasure. I'm a personal fan. I enjoy your work. I
oh,
like
thank you.
I like the audiobooks and the books both. I like the covering of your books, and I know you've got a lot of fans here, and we do appreciate your time. Thank you
Well,
so much.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for taking time to talk with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.